Hello, believers. Thanks for finding and joining us from the many audio options amongst the podcast cosmos. This is a podcast where we speak to creative minds about what they like, how they think, and how art and culture has shaped them. Currently on the seafront in Cramond. A friend of mine who lives in Miami refuses to believe that Edinburgh is next to the sea, despite obvious physical evidence to the contrary, so it's one of the eye for him, or the ear. Another place close to the ocean is Brighton, which is the place that I most associate with our guest today. It's the award-winning photographer, designer and cat connoisseur, Ed Moore. You'll hear though that I've got it totally wrong and Ed does not actually live in Brighton anymore. Research is going from bad to worst on this podcast. Ed has photographed anyone and everyone in the comedy and music world. He talks to us about his experiences at boarding school, how they shaped him, how he captures the essence of performers on stage, and managed to squeeze in some chat about X Files Season 1 Episode 3. Do get in touch with the show at believemepod.gmail.com and like and subscribe and all that if you fancy. So without further ado, here's Ed. I thought you were in Brighton.
No.
Why did I think you were in Brighton?
This should be the intro, is that everyone thinks that I'm in Brighton. I work there. No, I moved to Croyd's in 2018.
I know you did as well.
I seem to have a projection on social media of living in Brighton, owning a cat, and being a vegan.
I'm not got the vegan thing. I'm trying to remember when we first met, actually.
Well, I've got, and I can send you essentially sort of photographic evidence of when we met.
Oh, please, yeah.
So, laughter in odd places at the London Museum, July 2009.
Oh.
Simon Munnery had just been on. We'd been chatting on, I think it must have been MySpace, but it could have been Facebook.
Oh, wow.
And we did our first shoot days later.
And was that first shoot the one that someone commented on and said, "Oh, could be a good new Doctor Who"?
Yep, that was, I think, Tasha Danraj, who's now a writer on quite a lot of things, including Breeders.
Right.
She's got cats.
You just like cats, but you don't own a cat. That's fine.
Correct. So yeah, we'd been chatting online in some regard because I think he'd seen pictures of Acaster that I'd taken, and you'd seen, I think, Funny Farm photos in general, just sort of that crowd, TV's Joel Dommett, Mumbai's Simon Fielder.
Yes, he gets about, doesn't he?
Yeah, he went from Amsterdam to Mumbai, so I imagine he's a Files fan, or Filio. I don't know what an X Files fan would be called.
Well, it was Philo Files, which was coined by Chris Carter, and then that just got shortened to X Files. So you're an X File.
Oh, that's quite neat.
Yeah, but I also quite like experts. We can be experts, but we're not, and we don't need to be for this chat.
Just former avid watchers of early seasons. That's how I'd describe myself anyway.
Yeah, I guess we could ask that and get onto that now. It's like, when did you sort of become aware of the show?
I think it must have been a schoolmate, and he was a kind of geeky type, and we'd chat about Aliens and Terminator, not age appropriate for how old we were, but I believe that's probably where it had come from. And just, I remember the general buzz of it, and probably seeing it in Empire magazine or 40 Times.
Yeah. It's still going, isn't it, 14 times? And I remember 14 TV that used to be on with Father Lionel Fanthorpe and his motorcycle. I used to enjoy that. It's quite light-hearted.
Yeah, him and Sister Wendy certainly gave the church a really good PR push in the 90s.
So were you staying up to watch it then, or did you have a VHS player? Were you recording it, or did you get hold of DVDs or what have you, or did you engage with it?
So I was at boarding school, never really saw much live TV. There were strict timings where you could watch any television of any sort. I wonder if we ever had naughty late night viewings of something. We went down to the common room, one of the schools, and used to watch TV at a very low volume. I feel like that happened. Yeah, so it was certainly recorded off the telly by my parents, and they amassed, I don't know how many tapes of the whole thing. Again, it probably season 4, at least. Probably my parents recorded most, if not all of it.
So were they into it then, or were they recording it on your behalf?
They were into it as well. Yeah, they're big film and TV people. My dad,
Right.
I think, has had a longish running interest in sort of Area 51, being a military man, and that being a military history that the Americans have that we don't really have. We don't have anything quite like that, or they managed to keep it really hush hush.
Well, that's interesting. So was partly one of the reasons you went to boarding school because your dad moved around then in the military?
Yeah, it was exclusively the reason. They didn't want us to have the experience of what they had seen other military kids have. They wanted us to have, be grounded and settled. They picked a school in Devon near my grandparents, and so we had a army bursary. My grandparents on my mum's side, at least, chipped in. Being a twin brother, there was the two of us going there, so it was not cheap.
So I guess that was how did that feel then? Did you knowing that your brother was going to be going, did that make it less scary, or were you still fairly apprehensive?
I think, generally quite fine with it. We'd both been on a cadet camp a year or two earlier, and I'd gotten physically homesick, and I think I'd gotten a lot of that abandonment kind of thing out of my system to a certain extent. In fact, I think I was bolstered in some way by being incredibly fussy as an eater and managing to get the camp commandant to go into town and get me Nutella because I was so upset that that was the only thing that was going to calm me.
Right.
Still works. Don't really know why this was the case. I can't remember, but we started in the summer term. We'd missed 2 whole terms before we started at that school. I was a very cheeky boy and got sent out of class a fair bit, and I used to do a lot of the dares and get caught. So yeah, I was all about that and not about learning. So when it came to exam time, Malai, who as she was known, Miss Lee, who was this fossil of a teacher, she, to show our results and how we did in the exams, lined everyone up in order of their mark, and I was consistently at the bottom.
Oh no.
My brother was middle to the top, kind of like he was averaging out. I think I laughed it off at the time. I just thought, well, I think we all kind of giggled it away, but obviously there was something not right. And boarding school with smaller classes, you do expect a hand holding, and that didn't really happen. It wasn't until I was 18 that they thought, oh, he's good in class, or he's above average in class, or described as a shining light in my maths class, which was the bottom set, but top of the bottom set. I was bumped down from 3 A levels. It was a whole, not only there's a sense of abandonment from your parents, and they had good reason to, but there were some parents which really didn't. They just wanted status. But then the school, it was particularly Wild West affair. There was corporal punishment.
So what sort of year was this then? Whenabouts was that?
Well, we went in 1990. We started, and so we had our 8th birthday, and then to top it off, there was abandonment of your education from within, because they had quotas and targets to reach, being a business, even though they all registered themselves as charities, which is also another crime. The school that I went to, instead of us harming their French scores, they turned our French set into classical civilization. They didn't want to teach us, basically.
So I presume that you just kind of all bred a feeling of like treading water. What's the point of being here? I'm not.
Yeah.
These people don't seem to care about me. Were you? Did you just feel as though you were just waiting to leave?
Yeah. The saying "school's the best days of your life" really don't apply to everyone, and it's certainly a feeling of privilege going to a private or boarding school, but there's always a reality to any privilege, that there will be some that just live it up and do absolutely fine, but still within that you've got a whole spectrum of kids that are getting ignored. And I found that I lived with my bullies as well, and one in particular, we had to share a dorm from the age of 13 to I think 15. We kept on being put into the same room, and then we were opposite each other at 18, and things had cooled down to a certain extent, but then actually we had the biggest fight, and I got my ear cut by him, and it should have been a suspension, but because it was so close to exams, they didn't want any more scandal, because there'd already been a few bits of scandal of teachers' sons selling drugs on campus, and teachers having affairs with students.
Wow.
And it was, just whenever we got back to my parents for holidays, there was nearly always a story. You don't think of that as the most telling thing of a boarding school, but it is a small community and everyone knows everyone's business. There's no hiding from anything really. Someone would know your business in some way. But it was not a fun time. I thankfully found what I love to do in the summertime. One holiday, I feel like I was 15 or 16. My parents got us to do some workshop type things, and one of them was photography. And I'd had an interest and had a camera, and so I'd had one of those for a while and had been snapping away. But then this workshop made me think, okay, there's something to this. I mean, I wanted to get into filmmaking, so I thought, well, photography is just 1/24 of that. And that's a good quote. I don't know whether anyone's done that. Pretty pleased with myself. But it made me feel confident that there was something I could do and I was good at. And I'd always had an interest in sort of sciences of some sort, and just not been very good at them. And then interest in films and TV, and then photography kind of ticked another box of maths, which I always sort of understood, and technology. And my grandfather, my mum's dad, and then my grandma, my dad's mum, both were kind of keen photographers. There's a family connection, which I can't remember whether you know. My middle name
I don't.
is a clue to those that might know. Dodson.
No, I'm still not getting it.
That's a pseudonym for Carroll, Lewis Carroll.
Right.
So he's my great, 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 great think it's 5 great uncles, and the family on my mum's side is the liaison with the society, and my grandfather sold the diaries to British Museum. We've still got some first editions.
I had no idea. Absolutely fantastic.
I usually bore everyone with this. I'm sure I probably told you at some point, but yeah.
Well, that's great. That's sort of ticked off as you get older in life. You start looking into the family history, don't you? And it's usually, oh, Uncle Steve was a miner, and then that's where it ends. So I'm glad you're. That's wonderful to hear. So, I mean, at what point did you start really taking photography seriously? Then is that so? That's when did you get that camera? That camera, sort of mid-teenage years, is it? When you got the
After A levels, there was a hope that I would be able to get onto a filmmaking degree, but everything was kind of looking like I wasn't going to get the marks at all. I didn't get brilliant GCSEs either. So a stopgap was going to be a photography ND level. 2 years full time at Arts Institute of Bournemouth, which is weird because that's another place that my grandfather had been to on my mum's side, who was probably and still is, sort of a big inspiration to me, because they were hugely supportive of both my brother and I's kind of creative outlets. And
your brother, just for the benefit of listeners, is a musician. Is that
he's
right?
a musician. He's more of a graphic artist now, and a DJ, and yeah, he's got quite a broad set of skills. But I just kind of like stuck at the photography with the idea of getting into filmmaking. I went to, thankfully, one of the best colleges for photography, and specifically one of the best courses. That's where I met like-minded people and really cool people, and we got to use the same facilities as the degree level. And then bonus was we didn't have to write as much as they did, and then double bonus was that we got to go to these workshops in Switzerland for a camera manufacturer called Sinar, who are these very cool large format cameras, which are the ones where you throw like a coat or a blanket over you to look through, the old school stuff. But it informed how I took photos from there on in. And
was it the fact that you were based in Brighton and there's so much going off there that sort of drew you to capturing live events and comedy and music, or was it more of a kind of work person way of looking at it, where, oh, this is where I can make a bit of money, you know? Not that you're that mercenary about stuff, but we all got our early templates.
A bit of both, really, because coming to Brighton was doing the course and realizing how much Brighton had to offer in terms of nightlife, and the thought of having London and even Gatwick so close, that, you know, that so many more sort of opportunities to just do stuff and be, you know, have an interesting life. And yes, taking pictures of bands to start off with live, and realizing that there just was so much competition there that there was a crisis of confidence.
Right.
Going, I don't know what I can do with this, because, you know, I'm not one for wanting to sort of sell myself and really get stuck in there. There's an extra drive to some music photographers in particular, that they love music so much, whereas I like it a lot. And when a friend of a friend said, oh, do you want to watch me do some poetry at a stand-up night? I was like, yeah, sure, why not? I quite like stand-up. I'd never been to a live show, and I had recently got a digital SLR, and I thought it'd be a good test of that scenario, you know. And I said, I'll bring my new camera. And I spoke to the the promoter and MC and checked with him and the act whether it was okay to photograph it, and it was. Everyone was cool, and then that turned out to be Sean Walsh's third ever gig.
Right.
And he was very good even then. The material wasn't, but you could see that he was really good, and I enjoyed myself in terms of, as opposed to standing in front of some speakers feeling sick and having my ears bleed. I was sat down. It was just one person, one light against a background, usually quite a dark background, so that the picture was, in theory, easy enough to get a good one. The tricky bit was to get people's personalities or personas and to get a moment of that, so that when someone saw that photo, they thought, one, that they were a comedian, two, that they were a comedian they were interested by.
And I guess that sort of way of looking at things is something that is almost like a lifelong vocation in a way. You know, I kind of think about you, and maybe this is all, maybe it's you in particular, but certainly a lot of photographers, where it is like a calling.
Yeah.
You know, and even when you're 85, you'll still have the camera there, and you'll still be able to, you know, God willing, be able to see something in someone, or, you know, catch a glimpse of something and take a remarkable photo. So do you feel like that? Do you feel like it's always going to be with you?
Yes. Yeah. There's I shadowed a guy called Alex Bailey, who's a film stills guy on Never Let Me Go, the Andrew Garfield, Keira Knightley and Carey Mulligan film. And I kind of wangled my way into that scenario. I'd been to have a portfolio looked at by Alex and kind of like been in touch, and he said, yeah, these are all good. You need to take photos of dance as well to have some movement in there. And some of these photos, I can't see that they're a comedian. So I think I've gotten better now that pretty much, you know, if the photo doesn't look like the joke is being sold, then I don't usually like put it in, unless of course it's a very nice photo of someone. There was a day where it was in the studio for Never Let Me Go, doing the specials, which are the photos that get used for the poster. So that was fascinating. And I stood in for Andrew Garfield and had to stand inches away from Keira Knightley's face. And I had slept on someone's sofa the night before and hadn't had time to properly shower or anything. So I just felt just like, this is the worst. And she was lovely. Like, she is a lot of fun and made, you know, tried to make everyone cheery and smiley on that set. So I've got a lot of time for her. And the other day was shadowing Alex just as he takes the production stills, and we were sat down and just chatting over lunch, and I saw Carey Mulligan and the younger version of her chatting away, and I said, oh, Alex, do you want to go and grab that or something? Because he was looking the other way. And he went, yeah, cool, I'll just be back in a sec. And then he came back and said, you've got it. That's what you've got to do. Is you've always got to be looking for a picture. That's a really important one that I wanted to tick off. And you spotted it. So
that's nice. That's a nice sort of life lesson, isn't it?
Yeah, from your hero saying that you got it, and the fact that I don't ever really turn it off. I kind of want to see an image in most things, even if they're bland. And thankfully, the beauty of digital is that you can take that photo and you can go, oh, could this be interesting to other people or not? But you won't know that until you've taken that photo. You don't always know that if you're not switched on and it's very hard to turn it off. I don't think it actually does go off. You're just distracted by something else, and then so yeah, there's the nature of wanting to capture those moments, and you will have that in your mind forever. And so long as your hands can fire off a shutter, then you'll be wanting to do that forever. And then there's the combination of those things, and then the fact that photographers don't get paid much. So you kind of have to, because you don't have a retirement fund. Very few photographers, I think, make enough money to genuinely have a retirement fund, so that they just keep on working. And I'd say that's true of comedians and other creatives that undervalued. If I'm not shooting or editing, I'm doing admin, and that's the bulk of the job, is to just line up the jobs. And if that's not kind of coming to you, you either go and seek it, or you do what I do, which is usually just go, well, I I can look at more photos. I've got lots of photo books that I can sit and have a look at and sort of drink in and find some inspiration from. I find that's better for my mental health than to chase jobs.
Right.
I used to go to down in Brighton, it still exists, Comedia, which was the long-running comedy night that Stephen Grant ran. I would go to the Saturday early and late show, and then some other ones, and I'd be going at one point for a good 6 months, if not longer. I was going from working 5 a.m. in the morning at an off license, and then lunchtime have a short break, and then go and work at the photo lab that I still work at, and then go from there to both the comedy nights. So it was about a 17 or 18-hour day. And I'd also edit the photos throughout the night, and then try and get them all sorted by, that the middle of that night, if not the first thing in the morning, so that then I could post them on Facebook or MySpace and get more eyes on what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I also do a fair bit of design work, including winning a design at the Edinburgh Poster Award in 2015, which was very cool. Not with my photo, but with my design.
Oh, yes.
That was Tom Parry's yellow t-shirt. I did the edit in the Soho bar with Parry. I also did Matt Crosby's that year as well, and we were just in the Soho bar for about 2 or 3 hours and pretty much nailed it just there and then. Yeah, so that was quite cool. And then I think I did better work in 2018 or 2019 with some Rachel Paris, and was Tom Toll one, and a few others. And Steve Bouger. And yeah, I like that. I like being able to take the photos that I've taken and make them into a bit of an art piece. Like to sort of, yeah, that feels more like a creative outlet than just the photos themselves.
Yeah, because I mean, what I like about you, Ed, is that you are someone who likes to stretch themselves, and someone who also likes to stretch themselves is Eugene Victor Toombs from the X Files.
That's really good. I mean, that whatever the podcast awards, they're listening. There should be best segue.
Thanks. Yeah, and you were talking about winning awards, and I feel like that's rubbed off on that little segue a little bit.
Yeah, because I watched that the other night, and I'd forgotten how absolutely horny Mulder and Scully were for each other.
Right, yes.
Just, it's insane. The chemistry is. I was like, fucking chill out, guys.
Well, it's funny in this one, isn't it? And I should say this is season 1, episode 3, Squeeze, where we're first introduced to Eugene Victor Toombs, the liver-eating, hibernating serial killer. I was sort of struck by, like you say, just these little asides that they're starting to build up between Mulder and Scully. And I think it's a later one, episode, I think that's Ghost in the Machine or maybe Shadows, where they have this, like, they start building up little looks between them.
Right.
And there's definitely in this one where you've got this kind of careerist FBI character called, is he called Colton or something, who's sort of there as a kind of a bit of a foil and a bit of a doubter. And you get a first time in seeing, because it's only the 3rd episode, of Scully basically siding
being
with
protective.
Mulder,
played by Donald Logue, who I think was known for maybe comedy previously. I'm not too sure, but certainly he was the comic relief essentially in Blade as one of the baddies that was just yucking it up on screen. So it was quite interesting to see him play just a suit in this.
Yes.
But yeah, very antagonistic towards just the thought of Mulder existing almost.
Yeah, and I guess this is like one of the ones where you really get this feeling of not the politics of sort of enforcement of law, like everybody's sort of desire to find out the truth, but also like you've got to secure criminal convictions.
Yeah, I did think about watching the 2 previous episodes, but then I thought, well, no, let's just go. Let's go in with this, and I watched it as an isolated kind of like a monster of the week, which it was at that point. There wasn't really any greater thing that they kept on feeding back to. I looked at a synopsis, and I think maybe X Files was maybe the first to kind of go, look, we've got this really long story we're gonna go with. This was both event TV in the making and also long form thing. I mean, I'm not aware of another show that has that amount of breadth. Maybe just TV budgets were starting to come up, and they were just going, well, if we're going to get more money, then it has to be something that we can carry on with for ages. And 20 plus episodes per season, you kind of have to do that. But I really enjoyed Squeeze just being a real capsule of the show in general.
Even at this early stage, Duchovny was falling out with the directors of the shows because he knew or felt he knew the character of Fox Mulder more than, in this case, it was a director called Harry Longstreet.
Interesting.
And I think the director fell out with Chris Carter as well, because the director wanted Mulder to be a bit more like, let's go and take this guy down, no nonsense. And then Duchovny was like, he wouldn't be like that. He'd be like enthralled, but thinking about this as an incredible discovery that this person can hibernate and come back, every sort of 30 years, which you discovered is this year, isn't it?
Oh, exactly. Well, spoiler alert for.
I think we're beyond that.
Yeah, he does get, I think, killed. But if again, watching this in isolation, it would be, oh my God.
Yes.
He could be back now. If you were a true believer of what could happen within the show and, in real life, you're like, well, oh my God.
Yeah.
He could be knocking about now. And what a world to come into. That's something that they treat him as pure evil. But let's, for just a moment, defend Toombs. You've got your dodgy liver that prolongs your life, so you need to get livers. I mean, not great that you enjoy killing, but it's a survival instinct, right? And then each 30 years he's coming in, particularly during the 20th century, he's dropping into crazy times. Each time he must be like, what the fuck is going on with last time I was here? This was a Radio Shack, or last time I was here it was a Blockbusters, and now it's a Starbucks, or and then people with smartphones, the leaps in technology and everything. He between 93 and now, like, that's insane. But between 63 and 93, that's also big.
Yeah.
He just wants a liver. He's got one thing in mind.
Stick your head up, get those 5 livers, and then he's back.
Do a bit of pest control as well, just for some coin.
I mean, it does move quite. I was sort of taken aback by how quickly the episode moves as well, because they kind of caught tunes within about 15 minutes. Obviously, the thing gets re-released, but then it becomes more about how and why does it do this, which I thought was if you'd come up with a character like that, you'd be like, I'm just going to try and elongate this over a couple of episodes, but it was just a turnover of ideas.
Oh, did you mean to say elongate?
Oh, I didn't. That's another one. Thank you, podcast award people. The episode starts with this businessman. Well, we get like an opening shot where I think it's supposed to be LA, Vancouver, standing in for that. This businessman arriving at his office. It's kind of being watched from a storm drain. It's all very Stephen King's it.
Yeah.
See these kind of glowing yellow eyes. And then the businessman makes his way into the office block. It's this impenetrable, this office block. It's like, it's a place of lockdown. You need a key card to get in and everything, in and out of everything. That's not going to stop Toombs though, is it? The businessman makes a call to his wife. He says, "Oh, sorry, the presentation didn't go very well, so I would stay a bit later." I don't really know why. If that presentation not going to go, I don't know what you're going to do. Anyway, we're not getting sidetracked in business speak. He plays with a snow globe a bit, goes and gets himself a coffee, comes back into the room, and then at that point we see the air shaft, the air conditioning shaft cover being unscrewed.
Little screws
come out, these little hands comes through, the door slams shut, all hell breaks loose, and then we get a shot of dripping. Is that blood? No, it's coffee. But then you see the businessman's dead body, and and then we find out that his liver's been removed. So it's kind of a great, it's a good
great sequence. Good. I loved it. The door breaking itself in. I thought that was great. It's like you don't have to show another great bit of film making magic of show but don't tell, but also cover your backs with the sensors. You just go that was big.
And it's kind of quite, obviously they're working to a budget, but there are some kind of nice cinematic bits in it, and how they show Toombs, how they represent him is done. It's quite subtle how they do it. You see him going down the chimney and there's an arm going down, but you only see that arm being stretched for a second, and then your mind fills in the rest. And I think they did use a contortionist actually on the show to get down that chimney just for that particular shot.
Yeah.
But, no, I thought there was a lot of really nice visual storytelling in this one, and then you get that shot at the end where he's, they catch him. He is back in prison, and he looks to the prison door, and there's the food hatch, and we know
a magical light coming through, because he's it's almost religious to him. I want to know who his tailor is, because squeezing around in clothes and then not tearing apart. He's got big DM style shoes. And those managed to neatly go through any of his various holes. The bit where he's in getting through Scully's apartment.
Yeah.
He shoots out of there. It's not just a bit of a slide, but he goes for it. He explodes out of the hole. I don't think we get quite the. I don't know. I wonder if in the other episodes he's in, if we ever get a sense of his true kind of abilities. But it's pretty wild.
I mean, I guess he's lubed up with his own bile, isn't he? So he's going to get out of there. He's going to be quite a slippery character, and put a bit of force behind that, and then you're off.
The performance from the actor, I forget what his name is incredible. But in recent years, do you know what he's like in real life?
Yeah, I've only just looked into that. Is it Doug Hutchinson? Yeah, because I only knew him from his other
Green
roles.
Mile.
He's in Green Mile, and pops up in a couple of other stuff. But I did see there was something about him being married to a woman, but him kind of grooming her from the age of 16. Is that right?
Yeah, I think they married when she was 16. I think they went to a state where that was legal, and he was in his, I want to say, late 30s or 40s at that point. I think it all very suspect, but I think they were together for quite some time, a good few years, and then she divorced him and has become. Oh, I think maybe they now go by they pronouns, the wife. So they've now become a celebrity of some sort, and I think was on some either Big Brother-y type show, and has made a name of sorts for themselves. So it's an X-File within itself. The real life of Doug Hutchinson. But yeah, he's incredible in this. And so I wonder how he booked that gig. I haven't looked at his IMDb before, but it's a pretty landmark role, and I'd say one of the most memorable of the 90s.
Yes. Yeah.
For how little screen time he actually had. I think anyone who kind of watched X-Files, particularly early on when it gathered steam, another rule of episode 3 being an absolute banger. A lot of good historic shows, episode 3 is a turning point. It's like that's where you see how it's going to pan out in terms of the 90s and expectations being subverted. Scully in this she's really gung-ho. She leaps down the hole when they remove the mattress. She's like, let's go for it. She's the first one down. Did Silence of the Lambs come out roughly the same time?
Yes, because Doug Hutchinson said that he based part of his character on Tony Hopkins as Lecter.
Okay, there's a liver crossover.
Yeah, and every single one of these episodes it's like the X-Files take on, when we get to Ice, it's like the X-Files take on The Thing, and then Ghost in the Machine is the X-Files take on HAL 9000 from 2001, and then I spoke about Shadows the other day. That's like The Entity. So all that's factored in and goes through the TV machine. But I mean, that's what's so good about the X-Files. It's still in its own right really creepy and provocative when it needs to be, and very watchable. So it's great to kind of revisit it.
Yeah, I can't remember what I saw recently exactly. I don't think it was the creator, but maybe it was, where there's influences, overt influences, but you're remixing them and giving it somewhat fresh angle, or you're doing the production value is so high, and it's hard to criticize something if it's both paying homage or / ripping something off when it's that good. A good artist steals or borrows. It does feel like that, and in fact, that's a lot of the time what I've been doing with my photography is homaging and ripping off various previous things, and trying to make them my own.
I think that is a very nice point to end on. Believe Me is written and edited by me, Chris Boyd,
with production support from Steve Marshall. The music is by Johnny Boyle, and our logo is by Russ Brown. See you out there next time.